Good morning is probably all I need for this one, dear viewer. Not good afternoon, good morning, good evening, and all that, because this is basically a UK-centric chat. We're joined by James Cranwick, and he's the NATS, National Air Traffic Services Drones Business Manager. Actually, we should ask why you use the word drones in that. Is that really your title? And Nick Rogers from Sky Futures. NATS, National Air Traffic Service. I've heard about them. What? Surely they're the people that keep drones away from real airplanes. What on earth? Why on earth do you want to have anything to do with drones, James?
Well, NATS is the service provider for air traffic in the UK. We do it under a regulation from the CAA, who is our regulator. Sorry, under a license from the CAA, and airspace is open to all. We have to manage that safely and in an efficient manner, but in essence, we need to make sure that the people that want to use the airspace get access to it in the correct manner. And drones are part of that ecosystem now. They are developing at a huge rate. We've been working on projects to allow that integration going forwards. There was for example, a project called Project Claire that went on a couple of years ago about integrating drones into controlled airspace. And this is an extension of ensuring that the partnership with Sky Futures helps us make sure that the people that are flying drones have the correct knowledge of how to do it in a safe manner.
But then you've got the keys to the airspace. Then you're the man with the keys.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I think the keys to the airspace. The airspace is an asset that everyone owns. It's owned by the government, and they provide a license for us to manage some of that. Not all of it, and we need to make sure that how that is done is in a safe manner, and education and training is a critical part of that. We are not the people that says, no, you can't do this or you can do this. We just work within the rules and the regulations set by the CAA and the government.
Now, Nick, can you help me understand this a little bit better? It does. What's the synergy between Sky Futures and NATS? How does it help? How does it help both sides, I suppose?
Yeah. So, I mean, you might think that it would be a competition-based exercise in terms of, obviously NATS is an NQE, such as Sky Futures is a national qualified entity as well. So, but actually what we found when we started talking and when we started talking with Jim was that we both sort of provided slightly different functions. NATS has very much an interest in the education, making sure that as many people as want to get out there commercially can do that through the NATS drone portal, and also things like apps like Drone Assist and things like that. Whereas Sky Futures, we've spent the last 4 years training primarily enterprise customers as well as emergency services. We've done a lot of emergency services in the UK, and we do take the baseline CAA certification piece, but also we build on top of that with our experience, having sort of been deployed for 7 years as part of our managed services teams out in the globe, doing inspections on oil and gas infrastructure, renewables, bridges, anything really with vertical extent. So what we find now is that very much the training piece, in terms of that sort of fit for purpose scenario based training that we deliver at our centres, is very complementary to the training certification activities that NATS is building through the NQ as well. So that's
so what's scenario based? What does that mean? So you're going to teach me how to take a really nice photo of a house for real estate?
No, I mean it's completely different. What we do is we can take an enterprise or an organization who wish to use drones safely, and we can train up. So, for example, engineers in a large engineering company, engineers have laptops, whereas now they're looking at how they can adopt drones or connected devices to gather data. But obviously, there's an element where you have to do that safely. So what we do is we use all of our experience or domain experience in the various industries that we've worked in and help these companies adopt drones in a safe manner and actually build out their training through the Sky Futures training academies.
And what does NATS bring to the? Obviously, there's airspace expertise, and perhaps if I was to train within this NATS system, would I get even an air traffic visit? Even that would be cool, actually. In training, would just be to visit a tower and see what goes on, just to get a better idea of how the system works. Does NATS bring that side of things? Help me understand that a little bit.
So I think it's important to know I think we were one of the first 5 NQEs. So the qualification that's set out by the CAA, and they mandate what it is as a minimum has to be met as a standard to train someone to say that they can operate a drone safely in a commercial way. NATS, the rules of the air don't change because you're a drone pilot or because you're an airline pilot. They are what they are. Meteorology is meteorology. These things don't change. We need to change the focus of how we deliver that training, and make sure that it is current and relevant to the pilots, the drone pilots, so they understand what they want. And the partnership with Sky Futures brings NATS's airspace knowledge and pedigree and history and ability to make sure that we stay current with the CAA regulations as they change, and work with Sky Futures, who do it on a day-to-day basis, as Nick said, in a scenario-based training. So the idea is that the core level of training will, from NATS will give you a really good baseline of what the aviation mandate says from a theoretical training perspective. And then lots of people want to come and just learn the theory, do the minimum to tick the box. We can now provide a service for that that's cost effective for them. But actually, as an enterprise client, if you want to go on the journey to ensure that the engineer, the surveyor, whoever it is using the drones to get the most out of the drone and get a viable product at the end of it that actually drives the efficiencies to their business, then the partnership with Sky Futures will mean they'll have hopefully best in breed from an airspace theoretical training point and a best in breed from a scenario-based training. So Nick and the Sky Futures teams will run through them. This is what a railway survey looks like, and actually do it in practice, because their site has a railway on it. It has towers on it. It has those functions that allows them to carry out that scenario-based training, but with a real foundation in the knowledge that they're getting the best aviation theory training they can.
Now that's at Moreton in the Marsh, isn't it? I think, Nick. And then, so are all those things there because that is or was, or I don't know, that was the fire training place, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's based on the what was known as the Fire Services College, which is based in Moreton Marsh in Gloucester. So it's centrally located to the UK, and they now run. We have an exclusive license for drone training and operations there. We also use it as a centre for our R&D, but crucially, it has all of this infrastructure, pretty much everything that you would need. It's an old World War II. It was the World War II Bomber Command, actually. And it has an old A-frame runway and obviously the perimeter. And if you can imagine, sort of 8 or 9 industrial venues are placed around the site of the old airfield. So we have 350 acres of very secure play space, which we can use in order to build people's skills around things like railways. It's got a concrete ship with water features. It's got an oil and gas platform with a live flare as well. It has commercial buildings, and it's not just the external stuff we can do. So through our partnership with Flyability and the Elios, obviously we can do all the confined space training as well, which again, it's a part of the industry that is evolving quite quickly through some fantastic technology like that. So we can do both internal and external, although in the UK for the internal piece, you don't necessarily have to go through the permission for commercial operations process. But it just enables us to really provide, fit for purpose training such that, realistically, we can take an enterprise client. They may not have even seen a drone out of the box, on day one. And obviously we can do the wash up of ground school through the distance zone they would have done on day one. And then through 4 days of fit for purpose scenario based training, we can then get them to a point where they leave on a Friday afternoon, having been completely immersed. It's a residential place as well. So we've got 450 rooms that we can put people up, 3 square meals a day. They take their mind out of their day-to-day job. They really learn how to deploy the technology safely, and then by Friday afternoon they leave and they're absolutely on point to be able to go and deliver to their organisations for whatever that might be. So typically our client base is large engineering services companies and also emergency services. I think we've probably done around about 50% of the emergency services, so fire, police, and ambulance in the UK who have a drone capability.
So it's more about the larger entities then. It's not for someone like me who might want to come along and just have an NQE. Would I go and do that with Jim? Just rather that piece, or just want the basic NQE, or would it suit me to go? And of course, immediate what's coming to mind is how much is this all going to cost? Sounds jolly expensive.
So I think on that, Gary, is that the whole reason that the sort of partnership has been developed is allow everything from the really basic end, with NATS is developing an online training for the hobbyists, which will be completely free at use, which is sort of, we worked with the CAA to develop, to host the drone code on dronesafe.co.uk. We then did the Drone Assist app, and then the hobbyist recreational training piece. And then the commercial training is the extension of that, going really into the details of the requirements to operate commercially. And so what it will allow is the individual to choose what level they want to step in. And what we try to do is break it down so you can take as much or as little as you want. And you might say that you want to start and we'll just do the theory-based training, come to one of our centres to do a practical and theory test because they have to be done in person. And then you can submit your ops manual yourself to the CAA, or you can go all the way through the life, as Nick said, from sort of zero to hero, being able to, as an enterprise client, know that the people you're sending are going to come back and deliver real benefit for your company. And the costing for that is proportionate and will really hopefully shake up the market in terms of what it costs.
Are you a politician in your day job? That was a non-answer answer. The cost is proportional. I want a cold hard facts. No, that sounds great. Are you working with the so yeah, end to end from zero to hero and all those other sort of words. So on the hobbyist side, is that with the sort of the BMFA in the loop as well? I mean, somebody might it all sounds really good. It sounds great, and I'm very so yes. BMFA in mind in one side. That's one question. Another question is, so why did NATS get into three questions now? Why did NATS get into it in the first place? And are you the only air traffic regulator to have any sort of RPAS training scheme in their system?
Well, so I'll answer those in the reverse order. I'm not sure what other ANSPs are regulated, have regulated drone training programs. As you know, the concept, the construct of how air navigation service providers and regulators are organised around the globe is very different. So some are, the FAA, for example, is the regulator and it is the air national service provider, whereas NATS is a mixture of both. It's not the regulator, it just operates under a license for the regulator. And we have a commercial division as well. But why did NATS want to get involved in that is because at our core, it is about operating aircraft safely, managing the airspace safely. The exec sponsor for NATS activities is David Harrison, our Director of Safety. And through education and training, it is one of the best ways to reach an audience that not typically would have heard of NATS, know who NATS are and what we do within the airspace. And we felt that rather than trying to push regulatory mandates and things like that, actually working on education, and most people want to fly whatever vehicle it is safely, be it a hand glider, be it a model aircraft, be it a drone. Everyone wants to operate it. I say most people want to operate it as safely as possible. And we wanted to make sure that we got the right information in their hands at the right time. So,
very impressive. And as I said, the BMFA part of this.
So we've had conversations with the BMFA. They're not necessarily part of the training programs, particularly the commercial one, and they're not part of the partnership with Sky Futures. But we are having discussions with them about how we can bring BMFA sites into Drone Assist and do lots of things with that and work with them to ensure that the BMFA have a huge membership, and they've been operating a model aircraft safely for many years. And we want to make sure that as I say, they are another airspace user, and we need to ensure that those their concerns and their desires are understood.
I wish we had somebody from the FAA here as well. I wish our American viewers who'll be watching this later will just wonder what on earth what's what. So that's very impressive. And look, I won in our office. I won that. I can't remember what it's called. It's called the drone run. I thought that was a very clever. Were you part of this game education piece?
So within NATS, we have a wider drone working group, and we work very closely with our comms team, Jevon Snell. The drone run was his inspiration, and so we went out and got the game built, and it was a comms team led initiative supported by the wider working group. He's also sat opposite.
That's a fantastic business answer. That's really good. No, but it's really good. And education, we bang on every week. We have a hangout, and we bang on about education being the big issue from regulators. So they're not getting the message out there, and the carrot's better than the stick, isn't it, always? And if you can get across, and you're exactly right, 99% of people actually not only, well, two reasons. Yes, they want to fly safety, but they also want to fly safety because they can't afford to lose their aircraft. They're expensive bits of kit, and by flying with systems and procedures, you reduce the chances of crashing your kit, which is money saving.
It is, and there will be, as you know, there's the government consultation on drones. There is, and the announcement of the drone bill, and what that might entail. So there will be some regulation that's there to try and ensure that it's very good to train and educate, and that is by far our key focus. But at some point, you've got to be able to have a consequence for people who aren't behaving in that manner.
Well, that's the enforcement piece. Last night, Lou was speaking about flying in Portugal, where every time you fly something with a camera, you have to report it to the Air Force. Every single flight has to report it to the Air Force, and that's all very well. If you don't report it to the Air Force and there is no enforcement, then kind of what was the point anyway? So you'll be, and I think this, I don't know if you're in a position to answer, but I know that seemingly from the Civil Aviation Authority side, they would rather educate and give you a ticking off rather than coming after you hard unless you've done something really bad. Is that the sort of way that NATS would go as well?
Yeah,
I'm not meaning to excuse really bad behavior. That's not what I'm meaning, but it has to be proportionate responses, I suppose.
Very much so. If someone, negligence is not an excuse, but also being overbearing is not the answer here. We want people to enjoy what they're doing. There is also a government desire for the development of drone technologies in the UK to be at the forefront of what the drone industry can look like, the benefits to the wider UK economy, and for all our businesses in challenging times. So there is a real desire to integrate drones into airspace, and the CAA's response about being proportionate is something that we share, and we work closely with Jonathan Nichols and his team to make sure that the messaging that we put out is aligned to the CAA.
It's all very cool stuff, and I can see. Hopefully the drone. One of the things I worry about and rant about frequently is I'm beginning to see a lot of age requirements coming in for, shall we just say, simple model aircraft flying. And he's now 15 or coming on to 15 and much taller than me, but he's really into his model airplanes, and if there were those sort of things, it could really, I think it'll be to a certain extent the death of innovation, because that's the lead-in drug. And what I'm hearing and liking about what you're saying is it sounds like you've got, as a youngster, this is an appropriate way of training, perhaps mixed in with the BMFA. These are some good standards, and you're leading on. As it gets older, it can lean on to the next bit, and all the time have a continuous high quality interaction with the regulator, or not the regulator, I keep saying you're not the regulator, you're the facilitator. I don't know what
With a service provider.
Service provider. There you see. Yes, I never did all the management courses. I've never done all this business speak.
I think as well, just to add to some of what Jim was saying, and actually what if you think about what the CAA or the FAA or whoever it is, their business is about regulating safety. So, and I suppose that gives regulating safety of the air. Now, one of the big challenges that I think that just had adopting drones just full stop has been this notion that, oh well, it's okay, the CAA set a set of rules and off you go, and you're a commercial operator, you can do what you want. Well, I can categorically say in domains like oil and gas, some renewables, especially when you're offshore or the environment risk starts to elevate, then obviously you're into a position where who regulates that function, who regulates this new piece of technology in this industry. And I think one of the core strengths hopefully of this partnership is going to be that we can help industries consolidate this technology in a much simpler fashion, because we certainly from the Sky Futures end, I mean, we have an engineering base up in Aberdeen with oil and gas engineers, renewables engineers, all that kind of stuff, and they help build the proposition to the marketplace. And we couldn't do that without people like Oil and Gas UK, who I personally sort of sit on their sort of drone safety group, and that's been really positive interaction. We've put out a set of guidelines, which is guidelines to industry. Now, some people will say, crikey, I've got to be ISO certified for quality management, I've got to have safety management systems, well, unfortunately you do, and that's because your clients like BP and Chevron and Exxon or whoever it is, they've got a huge amount of infrastructure, and they send their aviation teams to do audits on you and all this kind of stuff. So straight away, you've kind of got this notion of the airspace or the air safety regulation, but actually layering on top of that, you're starting to see industry consolidate into what they need to do to support their industry and the devices within that industry. And I think that's really, really important.
Well, I think a lot of people arrive now and they go out and buy their Phantom and they go and do, let's say in America, you do your Part 107 course. I've done the 107 is not hard. And they go off and do that. And this time next year, Rodney, we're going to be millionaires with them, because we're going to be doing power and pipeline inspections. We're going to be doing gas infrastructure. But the pile of paperwork required to get into those, they've no idea about the other regulatory parts and safety parts required for that sort of thing. And perhaps, do you think the industry is growing up? I'll ask that to both of you. Is the industry beginning to? Well, certainly the UK is getting quite mature, I would think. Let me throw that back at you two.
I'll let Nick take it first.
Yeah. I mean, most definitely the industry has grown up. I mean, we have competitors in our space across our software training and services as well. But equally, what we've not seen until probably the beginning of this year is that actually the education piece is starting to happen into large businesses. So, the fact that people like Macquarie and PwC and Accenture and all of these people are getting into the marketplace is because they have huge clients that are starting to wake up to understand the value proposition of connected devices like drones. So that whole really the drone in an industrial sense is basically a data gathering tool. Absolutely, you have to collect that data in a safe and procedural manner, but then actually where does the value sit at the end of it? And so I think large legacy businesses, large blue chips are starting to realize that they can significantly change their businesses through the connected device like a drone. So that's my personal opinion of what we're seeing, and certainly the kind of the level of business that Sky Futures have been doing this year, sort of even 2 months in, tends to back that up.
And I think just to add to that, it's also businesses want to ensure that they can manage the risk and the product and the product they're getting, so that it's a way of being assured that, say for example, the person that's carrying it out has the appropriate insurance, because the insurance company has had to change how it writes policies to meet the needs of drone operators, which is very different. Do you have a third-party liability insurance because you're a company? Is that fit for purpose because you're flying aviation? or do you need a general aviation policy? And so there's those things are meaning that the market is moving towards being more mature in terms of what it can actually achieve, and it's actually developing real benefit now. So that the pioneers, I mean, the people that started 5 years ago, really drove the industry forwards in a fantastic manner. And now you're saying just the safety wrapper, making sure that it can continue the growth that we're seeing.
And I suppose it is an advantage to NATS to be very aware of what industry requirements of industry are and how you might help service those requirements.
Yeah, so I mean, from a airspace requirement is that if drones are we can talk about flying taxis, the future, or the infrastructure requirements. What does beyond visual line of sight really becomes the sort of not the golden nugget, becomes when it becomes really prevalent. So people haven't got visual sight of their aircraft. They're not doing it in close proximity. We can set rules, and the rules that are set by the CAA now, and manage that really well. It's what's the next stage look like? How do we push on to see real commercial benefit to the UK economy? And that's where it becomes you get into identity, detect and avoid, all of those sort of technologies and issues, and how do you fully integrate into ATM environments? And that's a really exciting time. And as I said, the people that have been pushing those envelopes are continuing to do so, and rightly so. And NATS wants to make sure that we can do it. For example, can you see a drone on primary radar? What are the number of drones flying near airports? The real figures that sit around those, and how we integrate those safely.
So are you daring to suggest you might make decisions based on data rather than Daily Mail news reports?
Well, it would be nice, yes.
So I don't know if it's quite your remit, where do you stand on remote ID or electronic conspicuity, as is the current buzzword, I think?
So there is a working group looking at electronic conspicuity, and the GA community, and how you integrate into GA airspace. There are lots of discussions. There is no golden ticket that's going to solve the answer, but we do need to look at how we integrate the desire of drone operators and the benefits they bring to the demands and the requirements of the general aviation business community, and how they operate in Class G currently.
Now, are you sat at the shiny brand new? It's not brand new anymore, is it? Down at the shiny centre in Swanwick.
It's a few years old now. No, we sit in NATS's HQ is in a place called Whiteley, which is about a mile from Swanwick. So I'm at Swanwick probably once a week, twice a week. But because we've looked at how we can develop tool sets to allow people to apply for airspace access, and how to get that access request into the controller ops rooms.
Because
focuses going forwards.
Somewhere down there in Swanwick, haven't you got the place where the remote towers are, where the new air traffic control tower is in fact not a place full of tea and coffee, but a stick with cameras on it, and people are sat remotely? That's pretty groundbreaking, isn't it? I think only some Scandinavian countries and the UK are running that at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we're very proud of the remote tower facility we have, and it's not my area of expertise. I have been in and seen it and played with it, and it is really good. How it works, how it brings 360 into 270, and how your mind sorts that out is very clever. And it's a way of hopefully bringing efficiencies to airports like London City, and lots of other airports are looking at it in ways of giving resilience, better performance.
Well, and also it sort of speaks to, once electronic conspicuity starts happening, you can bring these things into the controller's picture a lot better. The air picture is a lot. Oh, I should have thought about this before I started. But you know, you've got a much better picture of what's happening in the sky around you.
So as I said, this is not my. I am an ex-controller, but this is not my area of expertise. But one thing I think is key is that lots of people think, well, we want to be able to see everything, and actually, you want to be able to see what's relevant. And so those technologies and how that's integrated into the picture. I mean, we already do it with radar screens. We don't show the controller everything that's out there. Otherwise, it would become soup. So how those are integrated in the long term, there's a team that work on that, yeah, it will be really exciting. But it will also benefit, I think, drone operators going forwards, because it will allow those sort of things to be integrated.
Well, yeah, I mean, you filter everything, don't you? Moving target indicators and all the other good things, but yeah, I could see even from the RPAS side to have some sort of data picture being sent to you if you're in an area with LTE phones that could come onto your ground control station, so you're getting a similar picture that only flags up stuff that are a bit of a worry. It could be amazing. So I see some exciting changes on the horizon, and in how airspace might be managed at low level, particularly in what must be becoming a very valuable portion, which is the first 500 feet, which is until recently has been pointless and hardly worth monetizing. But it strikes me that it's becoming a very valuable chunk of airspace now.
Well, I think that the below 500 feet has been, whilst NATS have operated there and currently do around airports. I think the big thing is that lots of people think that, oh, no one's flying around there. Well, actually, there is an awful lot of people, predominantly military aircraft, and they need to train, they need to practice, they need to have the freedom to do that. Police aircraft, or blue light services. So it's not, I don't think, and it's not really for me to say, but I don't think a blanket line of, oh, you're all right below 500 feet, you're not above it, is going to be the way that we see the integration, safe integration in the long term.
I didn't put it very well, but it starts to have a bit of value. I mean, it is okay. There's been low level traffic, and as you say, blue lights, but of course, NATS as a service hasn't really. I mean, primary radar and secondary radar coverage below 500 feet across most of the UK wouldn't be all that fabulous. I guess above flight level 50 or 100, I don't know what it would be, was where you start getting numbers where you can start seeing all the airplanes. I'm ranting off. I don't know why I'm going off down here. I'm just trying to say that that little layer I can see now. If I was to be able to provide, say, a permission to fly in the centre of London for 20 minutes over some or other palace, £5, please. I can see that having a value, which it hasn't really had in the past.
No, and that asset belongs to the government. So how they choose to commercialise that asset is up to them.
Great answer. Top answer.
I think just to add to that, I mean, this is why, just training in general is so important, because actually, if it's an A to Z process where Z is total autonomy and A is kind of where we started, maybe 10, 15 years ago with these devices, and as they militarize and, regular and routine BV loss operations or autonomous operations, where you have obviously a person maybe controlling lots of different systems airborne at one time, managing the airspace. Well, how do you get to that point? And actually, at the moment, what we're doing, specific to training, we're teaching people to fly safely and procedurally around these types of infrastructures. Well, then at a certain point, the technology gets good enough so that we can teach through machine learning. We can teach the onboard systems to fly a certain profile around a certain type of infrastructure, maybe a crane or something like that. And then that starts to build in the autonomy. The whole thing about and UTM and all that kind of stuff, that literally overnight they're going to turn on this system where you can monetize that sort of airspace that you're talking about, Gary. I think we have to aggregate to that point. We cannot, we're not going to be able to turn something on, because certainly when it comes to airspace, everything has to be multiple bearers. So, as some people might say, well, ADS-B is the out winner, but actually it's going to be a combination of ADS-B, LTE, all of these different mixes, depending on what spectrum they can license and all that kind of stuff, that is going to provide this network for you to be able to do what you want to do.
Yeah, it's good. Well, it's good to hear that you're thinking of the multiple solutions, because I talk to some people and they do only say ADS-B. It's all about ADS-B. ADS-B is going to save the world. Like, no, it's not. No, it's not. And so, I'm being the devil's advocate, and I'm proud. Even though I sat down here in South Africa, I'm very proud that the UK is taking a lead and thinking and pushing on and pushing these technologies. It's great. It's great news for the future of how it look. How I suppose there's I'm in Africa. There are elephants. There's no elephants in this room, but Europe, Brexit. How does that affect airspace moving forward? Will the UK be an island of its own, doing its own thing within Europe?
I think to speculate about what Brexit means to UK airspace is probably is an elephant in the room. So I'm certainly not going to pass comments on it.
Top answer. Top answer. When are you joining a party of your choice to apply to Parliament? Top answer. It's very good. Yeah, okay. It was a little bit unfair to ask that because I mean, I suppose at the end of the day, as long as the UK has the fantastic and best regulations that work, absolutely lickety split and the best, and that's always going to be good for the UK, regardless of what anybody else does. So no, I'm very impressed. Now I understand. So you've got Moreton in the Marsh as one of your training areas, and you can also go to lovely Swanwick and up to Scatsea, up to Prestwick, I think, as well. Can't you, to train?
Yes, yeah. So it gives some cultural, some geographical diversity. So not everyone has to truck to the same place. The scenario-based training will be at Moreton in the Marsh at a predominance, and we will be able to, if the right sort of enterprise client has a facility that they want us to come and do some training at, we can look at those as options. But generally speaking, you can come and do some theory training or practical testing with us. But if you want to, if you already can fly your drone and know how it all operates and the parameters of it are, you can come and do that at our centres just to get the actual test. But if you want the scenario-based training, part of the partnership is that it's done with Sky Futures, because they have what we believe is the best facility in the UK to deliver scenario-based training with the right instructors, which can be a mixture of their instructors and ours.
Is the what's the feeling of the numbers of people coming for training across the industry? Is it still on the rise? Is it plateaued? Is it on the way down? How is the training industry in the UK at the moment?
Should I answer that one?
Yeah, go for
it. I think well, like anything, I mean, we had a rash. So I think Sky Futures and NATS were maybe third and fourth NQEs in the UK. So that would have been back in 2014 that we got our first year's national qualified entity status. And obviously, you know, people have come in since, and you know, that's certainly important for competition in the marketplace and all that kind of stuff. I think we started to see a bit of a diversion between you know, the sorts of training that we provide and obviously, you know, people, you know, just turning up, they bought a drone, they decided they want to operate commercially and they want to go off and do, and as a, you know, the marketplace did commoditize a little bit, and it's quite hard because clearly the Sky Futures scenario based training, you know, is significantly more expensive than the baseline NQE offering out there. So you know, we had a little bit of a challenge initially to try and sort of meet that conversation, I suppose. But actually, you know, again, I personally believe you get what you pay for, and certainly if you have your business and you're serious about this technology and actually deploying it safely and procedurally, then I'm confident that our product meets those expectations.
And when sorry,
guys. In practical terms, I believe that the number of applications to the CAA are increasing, so that it is on the up from, I think, both ours and Sky Futures perspective. That has tended to be more, and maybe that's because of the type of organisations we are and who we would attract. But there's been a slight shift from individuals wanting to try and who want to take a drone and operate it commercially to organisations. So less maybe ops manuals being issued, but more people on those ops manuals. So more people being able to operate, but actually less entities or a slowdown in the number of entities.
And just to unpack that a little bit for people that might be wanting to fly commercially in the UK aren't quite unsure. So you go off, how does it work? You go off and do your training. If you want to be a sole trader, you then generate an ops manual, which is how you can operate, how things are going to work for your business. And if just tell me if I'm getting this wrong, I'll finish in a second. But if you wanted to work for another company, you would be put on, you would do your training, and then whatever skill set you required, and then you would be put onto that company's operations manual. Is that basically how it works?
I'll let Nick answer that one.
Yeah, so the permission for commercial operations, is below 20 kilos in the UK. You have to think of it as man or person and machine. Okay, because actually, at the end of the process, the individual doesn't get a drone pilot license. It's the combination of the person and the machine that go to make the permission for commercial operations. And to be quite clear as well that Jim and I, in our sort of role as post holder for these NQEs, we only have powers to recommend a person or an entity to the CAA for it's the CAA that actually give you the piece of paper, so we're not in any way, shape or form a regulator. It's kind of a deferred responsibility for recommendations. So so with that in mind, obviously, if you're a sole trader, you would have to have your own ops manuals for soletrader.com. You would have the ops manual for that, and then you would complete the ground school process and then the flight assessment. So it's the kind of three things. The NQE would then say that they've read the ops manual, they've done a review, and they will put that up to the CAA for recommendation on the basis that it's quality enough, and then they'll issue the permission for commercial operations. So when it comes to individuals sort of leaving and going to another organization, it's a bit nuanced. It depends on the machines they're operating, were they fixed wing, were they rotary, what relative ticks in the boxes do they have, and have they read and understood the new operations manual and all that kind of stuff. So and then it's up to the entity to apply to the Civil Aviation Authority for what's called variants, to then put that person on their permission for commercial operations. So it's a little bit complex, but it's all doable, provided the entity who own the PFCO actually do the right steps to make the CAA aware of the new person and provide the evidence to support that person going on to their operations manual.
We have a crazy. Sorry, after you.
I think on that, one of the things that the partnership is looking at is how we provide ops manual support to our customers, both individuals and client-based, in terms of managing those variances, managing any, ensuring they're aware of any changes from the CAA, and also any exemptions that they might be able to achieve in the future.
And then if you've taken somebody by the hand, and the next question I'm going to ask is about when that online training might come about. But if you've taken somebody from the hand by the hand from the very beginning of the process, then you have a training record, or a record of changing achievements, and perhaps also a flight time that's been logged within the various things. Because I assume your time is important if you were just a sole trader logged. Here they have a crazy thing here. They accept no, they don't bring any previous flying experience forward. Your logbook starts from the day you finish your training here, which is kind of ridiculous. They don't. But anyway, that's aside. That's another thing. Maybe you could speak to that. Does experience count through the process?
Yeah. So I mean, if you've held a PFCO for a year, you obviously have to then go to renewal for the following year, and what the CAA asks for is a copy of the last page of their logbooks, signed off by the authorizing person type thing, to provide evidence, that they're current. And the currency requirements are loosely set at 2 hours every 90 days. So, or 2 hours every 3 months. So, which is not a huge amount of flying, but it's you still have to show the evidence through the CAA process.
It's a lot of 6 or 7 minute or 20-minute phantom flights, isn't it? Well, it's not a huge amount. I know it's not a huge amount. And Jim, when might we expect to see this online training? I'm quite excited to have a crack at that myself.
So the recreational training is we're just CAA about how we want it to be delivered, but we're expecting to see it in the next month or so. It's all been animated and done. It just needs to. One of the things that we looked at predominantly, and we've always taken a stance, that it was very much based around operating safely from an aviation perspective. But one of the training things and that we that we feel that and the DFT are looking at including is what that means for privacy.
Okay.
So because that is a concern and perception of the public about invasion of their privacy, and we need to ensure that the messaging around that is clear.
Wow, amazing stuff, guys. I've had you on the line here for well over half an hour, which is fantastic. I could probably rant on with silly questions for ages, but I better you've got day jobs. You're not like me. So perhaps we better knock it on the head. But have you got anything else you'd like to add that we haven't touched upon?
No, just from our perspective, thank you very much for your time, Gary, and hosting this. And I think it's a very exciting time for the industry, and we really do believe that the partnership with Sky Futures is going to change the way that people can access training and hopefully improve the education throughout the UK drone industry and possibly overseas. Who knows? We'll see. No,
it's amazing. It's fantastic sort of bookends of experience, isn't it? With the air side of things, and then the proper grown-up commercial, really where the money is. Really, grown-up in inspections on the other side. It's two very interesting pillars to this. So fair play to you. I'm very impressed, and I look forward. Hopefully, we can catch up again in 6 or 7 months and find out exactly what's been happening, and maybe I'll bump into you both at Farnborough. I'd like to. We'll be at Farnborough later in the year, and we shall perhaps have a jar or two of thinking juice to unpack this a little bit further.
That sounds great.
Gary,
cool.
Thank you for your time, and thanks to all the CS News supporters. I think it's a great outlet for the industry, one that I hope will continue.
So do I. That's very kind. Thanks very much, gentlemen. I'll catch up with you in 6 months' time. See how we're doing. Take care for now, dear viewer. Don't forget to join us at 2100 GMT every Tuesday for our Drone and Sundry nonsense chat, and we'll be updating some other videos this week as well. So thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again on Tuesday. Bye bye for now.